Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Film Fanatic. In this episode, I'll be discussing a movie I just saw recently, a little film called Call Me By Your Name. A beautiful film, by the way, and I'm really glad that I ended up going to see it. I've seen it twice now in theaters. Really, really good. Just really good. I'm going to try and keep this brief, but I'm going to touch on all the things that I liked about it, especially about its writing and about its story and its pacing. Here I go. I'm going to try and keep this brief, but first, I got to take a little sip of this. Got to fight the flu somehow. Anyway, so here we go. Without further ado, this is a little video about Call Me By Your Name. So I was a little skeptical when I first was going to see this movie because I wasn't totally sure what it was about, but I came out of this movie a changed man. I think one of the things that's so perfect about this movie is its cinematography. It is just beautiful looking, and it really captured the feeling of summer. I think that's one of the things that really stuck with me afterwards. It really captured that feeling of those summers when you were back in school and you just didn't have anything to do, and you just sat around waiting for summer to end. But then when it did end, you're kind of upset because you wasted your summer away. This movie is a lot about love and lust and desire and passion. It's all of these things, but I think it's all packaged in this very real love story. Um, it's. I think we've all at some point or another felt that feeling of loving someone, and maybe they love you back, maybe they don't, but that feeling of knowing that what you have cannot last, or will not last for any reason, any number of reasons. Timothy Chalamet as Elio was wonderful. He should most definitely win for Best Actor. I don't know if he will. I'm sure that Daniel Day-Lewis will probably take home that prize, or maybe Gary Oldman. But in my opinion, Timothy Chalamet should receive that award. He was freaking amazing. He was really, really good. There's a specific scene in the movie that comes to mind when I think of his wonderful acting, and it's right at the end. I won't spoil it here because I really think that if you haven't seen the movie, you should definitely go and see it. But I will say this: he manages to go through so many emotions in one scene without ever speaking a word of dialogue, and I think that that's a really important thing for an actor to be able to do, and not a lot of actors could pull that off. And this is a very young actor who I think we'll be seeing a lot more of, especially after having a small part in Lady Bird, but also being a very big focus of this movie. He's the main character, so all the acting in this movie was phenomenal. I don't think there's one thing about this movie that I could complain about. It's very well paced. If you don't like slow movies with minimal dialogue, I don't recommend this movie for you. But that's something. Those are movies that I don't see a lot of, but because I think that they're sometimes, a lot of times they're not executed well. But this movie was executed fantastically. There's just so much to love about it. There's not a lot of movies that I've come out of, and I just can't get it out of my head. But I've seen this movie twice now, and both times I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's really, really stuck with me. It brought me back. It brought me back to a time when I was younger, and it seemed like love was the most important thing in the world to at the time, I guess. And that, I think the movie deals with themes of letting go as well, letting go of love and of your youth and of innocence. But I think that it's a movie that everyone can relate to in some capacity, and I think that's very important. I don't know. It's been getting some good attention, but I do think that for the moment it might kind of stay in the background, but I think years from now, it'll be looked back on as one of the best movies ever made. It's paced very well. Even though some parts are slow, everything feels necessary. Anytime there is dialogue spoken, it feels very necessary, and all the acting, as I said, is just fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend that you see it if you haven't yet, because it's a movie that will touch your heart in the deepest parts of your heart that you probably didn't even knew existed. I kind of messed that up. I kind of messed up what I wanted to say there. So I'm sure that didn't really make a lot of sense. But anyway, that's Call Me By Your Name. And I'd like to introduce for this episode my rating scale. I like to rate movies out of 10. I feel like 10's a good number to rate out of. And honestly, and don't think that this is going to be a regular occurrence, because I don't give a lot of movies a perfect score, but I would actually rate Call Me By Your Name a 10 out of 10. I have no complaints. It is almost perfect. Maybe there's a little tiny things here and there that aren't perfect about it, but there's nothing big enough for me to take a point off. So I guess it's kind of nice to be starting off the very first official Film Fanatic movie review with a 10 out of 10. And that's because that's what I give Call Me By Your Name, a 10 out of 10, in case you didn't hear me. Anyway, that'll do it for this one, guys. If you want to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, I'll put those down in the, in the right here. You can, somewhere here on the screen right now. You can go ahead and follow me on Instagram and Twitter, because I really appreciate that. Like I said, like the video, subscribe if you like it, and leave comments with your feedback. I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's all I got for you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Be good to each other.